The 12th nanny lasted exactly 17 days. Elena Hart heard the screaming from the servants' quarters 3 floors below the main house. Not the screaming of a child, something worse. The high, desperate sound of an adult who had reached her breaking point. By the time Elena made it to the grand foyer, still wearing her gray cleaning uniform, the woman was already halfway to the door. Margaret Chen, 53 years old, former head of pediatric care at Boston Children's Hospital, currently clutching her suitcase like a life raft. "I can't," Margaret kept saying. "I can't, I can't." Alfred the butler stood at the base of the marble staircase with his hands clasped behind his back. His face was carefully neutral, but Elena caught the flicker in his eyes. He had seen this before, 11 times before. "Miss Chen, if you could just explain." "Explain?" Margaret laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. "Explain what?" "That I've worked with disturbed children for 30 years and I've never—" She stopped, her eyes wild. "That little girl doesn't need a nanny. She needs an exorcist." "Miss Chen," the voice came from above. Julian Thorne stood at the top of the staircase, still in his business suit at 11 p.m., his tie loosened, his face carved from stone. At 38, he carried himself like a man twice his age, not in his body, which was lean and fit, but in his eyes. Those eyes had seen things they couldn't unsee. Margaret Chen looked up at him, and some of her hysteria faded into something more complex. Pity, perhaps, or resignation. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne. I know you're paying me more money than I've made in the last 5 years combined, but there isn't enough money in the world." She pulled her coat tighter around herself. "Your daughter doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She doesn't throw tantrums like normal children. She just looks at you, and somehow that's worse, because you can see it in her eyes. She's judging you, finding you wanting, and she's not wrong." She walked out into the night without looking back. Elena stood in the shadow of a marble column, invisible in her gray uniform, watching Julian Thorne descend the staircase. His footsteps echoed in the vast foyer. When he reached the bottom, he didn't look at the door Margaret had fled through. He looked at Alfred. "That's 12, isn't it?" "Yes, sir, in 14 months. Julian nodded slowly, as if this number confirmed something he'd always suspected. "Where is she now?" "Her bedroom, sir. I believe she's in the closet again." Something cracked in Julian's face. Just for a moment. A fissure in the stone. Then it was gone. He climbed the stairs toward his daughter's room. Elena finished her shift at midnight, but she didn't leave. Instead, she found herself in the servants' kitchen, nursing a cup of tea she didn't taste, thinking about the little girl she'd never met who lived in a 50-room mansion and apparently preferred closets. The ad had said, temporary cleaning staff needed for private estate, competitive pay, discretion required. Elena had been working for the agency for 3 years. She took whatever jobs came her way, office buildings, hotels, the occasional private residence. She never asked questions, never complained, never got involved in the lives of the people whose messes she cleaned up. She had her own mess to worry about. The letter from Sunshine House sat in her bag like a stone. The group home where she'd grown up, where she still volunteered every weekend, was 3 months behind on payments. The bank was threatening foreclosure. 32 kids would be on the street by Christmas if someone didn't find $60,000. Elena made $11 an hour. She had exactly $412 in her checking account. So when Mrs. Patterson, the Blackwood Manor housekeeper, offered her overtime hours during the special event next week, Elena said yes without asking what the event was. She should have asked. The 3 women arrived on Tuesday. Elena was polishing the banister in the east wing when she heard the cars pull up. Curiosity got the better of her, and she moved to a window overlooking the circular drive. The first car was a white Rolls-Royce Phantom. A blonde woman emerged, her hair swept up in a chignon that probably required its own support staff. She was already pointing at things: the garden, the fountain, a member of the groundskeeping staff, issuing commands in a voice that carried even through glass. The second car was a red Lamborghini driven by a younger woman with auburn hair and a dress that looked like it had been poured on. She barely waited for the engine to die before she had her phone out, filming herself against the backdrop of the mansion. The third car was a black sedan, unremarkable, carrying a woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes and a leather messenger bag that looked more appropriate for a university than a mansion. Elena watched them file into the house, each with her own entourage of luggage and expectations, and felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had seen that kind of arrival before, at Sunshine House when prospective parents came to evaluate the children. The kids would be scrubbed clean and dressed in their best clothes, lined up like merchandise, putting on their brightest smiles in hopes of being chosen. Elena had stopped smiling by the time she was 8. Nobody had chosen her. Whatever this is, she thought, returning to her polishing, it's none of my business. She learned what it was by accident. 3 hours later, Elena was cleaning the library, a task that took most of the day, given that the Thorne family had apparently collected every book ever published, when voices drifted through the partially open door of the adjoining study. The rules are simple, Julian Thorne's voice, flat and businesslike. You will each have 1 week to demonstrate your potential as a maternal figure for my daughter. The woman who succeeds in earning Lily's trust will receive this. A pause. Elena moved closer to the door, curiosity overriding common sense. $5 million, Julian continued. Cash, non-negotiable, plus this. Another pause. My grandmother's engagement ring, valued at $3 million, but priceless to my family. And should things progress naturally, my hand in marriage. Elena's claw stopped moving. Mr. Thorne, said a voice she recognized as the blonde from the Rolls-Royce. Crisp, cultured, hungry. Are you suggesting we compete for the position of your wife? I'm suggesting you compete for the position of Lily's mother. Marriage would be a natural extension, but my primary concern is my daughter. His voice hardened. She hasn't spoken in 2 years. She's seen 12 nannies, 8 therapists, and 3 residential programs. None of them have reached her. I am out of traditional options. So you're trying to buy her a mother? The voice was new, the woman from the black sedan, with an edge of academic disapproval. I'm trying to save my daughter, Dr. Apprentice. If you have moral objections, the door is behind you. Silence. I thought not. Julian's chair scraped against the floor. You'll be introduced to Lily tomorrow. Until then, make yourselves comfortable and understand this. I will be watching everything. Elena heard footsteps approaching the door. She retreated quickly to the far end of the library, picked up her cloth, and began polishing a shelf she'd already polished twice. The door opened. Julian Thorne walked through, headed for the main entrance. He didn't look at Elena, didn't seem to notice her at all. Why would he? She was just the help. $5 million. The number echoed in her head as she worked. $5 million. That was more than enough to save Sunshine House. More than enough to secure those 32 children's futures. More than enough to change everything. But the price was becoming a mother to a child she'd never met. A silent, troubled little girl who had driven 12 professional caregivers to the breaking point. Not my business, Elena reminded herself firmly. Not my place, not my problem. She finished her shift and went home to her tiny apartment, where the letter from the bank sat on her table like an accusation. The next morning, Elena arrived early. The mansion was already buzzing with preparation. Flowers had been arranged in every room. The kitchen staff was preparing what looked like a state dinner, and the 3 candidates were being groomed and positioned like chess pieces before a match. Elena was assigned to general cleaning duties in the East Wing, which, as it happened, included the hallway outside the grand parlor where the introduction was scheduled to take place. She didn't mean to watch, but the door was open and she was right there, and somehow she couldn't look away. Lily Thorne was 6 years old. She stood in the center of the parlor like a doll on display, wearing a blue dress that matched her eyes and probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. Her dark hair was brushed until it shone. Her hands were clasped in front of her, perfectly still. And her face, Elena felt something tighten in her chest. That face was familiar. Not the features, but the expression. The careful blankness, the eyes that saw everything and revealed nothing. I know that look, Elena thought. I wore that look for years. Julian stood behind his daughter, one hand on her shoulder. The 3 women were arranged in a semicircle before them. Victoria in cream-colored silk, Bella in something that glittered, Dr. Apprentice in a sensible blazer. Lily, Julian said, these ladies are going to be staying with us for a while. Can you say hello? Lily said nothing. She didn't even blink. Victoria stepped forward first. Hello, darling. I'm Victoria. Her voice was the kind of carefully modulated warmth that adult women used on children when other adults were watching. What a lovely dress. You must tell me where you got it. Lily looked at her. Just looked. Victoria's smile faltered. She glanced at Julian, then back at the child. Don't be shy, sweetheart. I don't bite. Nothing? Bella tried next. Hey there, cutie. She crouched down to Lily's level, phone mysteriously appearing in her hand. Want to take a selfie with me? We could use one of these cute filters. Lily's eyes dropped to the phone. Something flickered across her face. Not fear exactly, but aversion. She took one step backward, pressing against her father's legs. Bella! Julian's voice was sharp. What? I was just... No phones. Bella stood up, pocketing her device with a look of wounded innocence that convinced no one. Dr. Apprentice approached more cautiously. She didn't crouch or smile or perform. She simply held out her hand, palm up, like you might offer food to a stray animal. Hello, Lily. I'm Dr. Apprentice. I study how children communicate. I'd like to learn how you communicate, if you're willing to teach me. Lily looked at the extended hand for a long moment. Then she looked up at Dr. Apprentice's face. Then she turned and walked out of the room. Lily! Julian's voice cracked. Lily, come back here. But Lily was already gone, her small footsteps echoing down the marble corridor. And Julian Thorne stood in his grand parlor with $5 million worth of incentive and 3 carefully selected women and absolutely no idea how to reach his own daughter. Elena pressed herself against the wall as Lily passed. The little girl didn't look at her. Why would she? But for just a moment, their paths crossed close enough that Elena could see Lily's face clearly. Not blank, not empty, guarded. There was someone alive behind those eyes. Someone who had learned at 6 years old that revealing yourself only led to disappointment. I see you, Elena thought. I see you, little one. They found her in the garden 20 minutes later, not on the ground, in the oak tree. The ancient oak that dominated the center of the formal garden, its branches reaching up 60 feet or more. And there, 30 feet above the manicured lawn, sat a little girl in a blue dress, clutching a ragged teddy bear that Elena hadn't seen before. Lily! Victoria was shouting from below. Below, her cream silk ruined by grass stains from where she'd attempted to climb. Lily, come down this instant. Bella had her phone out again, filming despite Julian's earlier warning. Oh my God, you guys, this is insane. Dr. Apprentice was taking notes, actual notes. And Julian stood at the base of the tree with his hands at his sides, looking up at his daughter with an expression of such naked helplessness that Elena felt something crack in her own chest. Lily, he said, his voice breaking, please, I'm not angry. I just need you to come down safely. Please, sweetheart. I'll do anything. I'll send them all away. Just come down. Lily looked down at her father. Her face was still guarded, but Elena saw her arms tighten around the teddy bear, saw her small body press closer to the trunk of the tree. She wasn't just hiding. She was protecting herself from all of them. Elena didn't make a conscious decision. Later, she would try to remember the moment she chose to move, and she wouldn't be able to find it. One second, she was standing by the garden wall with her cleaning supplies. The next, she was walking toward the tree, past the 3 candidates, past Julian, to a spot about 5 feet from the trunk. She sat down in the grass, not under the tree where Lily would feel watched, not far away where she could be ignored, just nearby, present but not pressing. What is she doing? Victoria hissed. Elena ignored her. She picked up a small stick from the ground and began drawing in the dirt. Simple shapes, a circle, a square, a star. Miss, I'm sorry, what is your name? Julian's voice was confused, not angry. Elena, sir, I'm with the cleaning staff. Elena, my daughter is stuck in a tree. This isn't really the time for... She's not stuck. Elena kept drawing, not looking up. If she could get up there, she can get down. She's not stuck, she's choosing. Silence from above. Elena could feel eyes on her. Lily's eyes, but she didn't look up. Instead, she began talking. Not to anyone in particular, just talking. When I was about her age, Elena said to the stick and the dirt and the late afternoon air, I used to hide in the crawl space under our house. It was dirty and dark, and there were probably spiders, but it was the only place where nobody could find me, where I could just exist without anyone expecting anything. She drew another shape, a house, a simple house with a triangle roof. The woman who eventually got me to come out, she didn't try to talk me out. She didn't threaten or bribe or perform. She just sat outside the crawl space and told me about her day, her cats, what she was making for dinner. Nothing important, nothing that required me to respond. Elena could hear breathing above her, small, quick breaths. Lily was listening. She did that every day for 2 weeks. And one day I crawled out. Not because she asked me to, because I was curious about the cats. Elena finally looked up. Not at Lily, at the tree itself. Its bark rough and ancient, its branches spread like protective arms. That's a good tree, right? She said. I can see why you like it up there. Probably feels safe. From 30 feet above, barely audible, a sound, not a word, but not silence either. A small exhale like the release of held breath. Elena went back to her drawing. A cat. A lopsided cat with whiskers. Behind her, she could hear Julian talking in a low, urgent voice to Alfred. The three candidates were murmuring among themselves, but Elena didn't turn around, didn't engage, didn't break the strange spell that was weaving itself between her and the silent child in the tree. 10 minutes passed, 15. And then, slowly, so slowly, Lily began to climb down. Not all the way, just to a lower branch, maybe 15 feet up now instead of 30. Close enough that Elena could see her face clearly. Lily looked at Elena's drawings in the dirt, at the cat with the lopsided whiskers, and something happened. Just for a moment, just a flicker around the corners of her mouth. Not quite a smile, but the possibility of one. Elena felt that flicker like a physical thing, like a spark catching in her chest. Your teddy bear, Elena said casually, still not making direct eye contact. Looks like he's been through some adventures. Lily's arms tightened around the ragged bear. I had a stuffed rabbit when I was little. Mr. Whiskers. He was more thread than rabbit by the time I had to leave him behind. Elena paused. I still miss him sometimes. Something crossed Lily's face. Pain, maybe. Recognition. Then, so quietly that Elena almost missed it, Lily spoke. One word, just one word. The first word she'd spoken in 2 years. Biscuit. Elena's heart stopped, then started again. Is that his name, Biscuit? A tiny nod, barely visible. Elena smiled, not a big smile. Nothing that might scare Lily back into her shell. Just a small, quiet acknowledgement. That's a good name. He looks like a biscuit. Behind her, Elena heard Julian make a sound. A choked, broken sound. She didn't turn around. Lily climbed down 2 more branches. 10 feet now. Close enough that she could have jumped if she wanted to. I'm going to go back inside now, Elena said, rising slowly from the grass. I have shelves to polish. But it was nice meeting you, Lily, and you, Biscuit. She turned and walked toward the house. She could feel Julian's eyes on her, feel the questions burning in the air behind her. But she didn't stop, didn't explain, didn't make it into something it wasn't. She was just a cleaning woman who had talked to a child in a tree. None of my business, she reminded herself. But even as she thought it, she knew it was a lie. In the quiet miracle of a little girl's first word, Biscuit, and the slow, brave return of her voice, we witnessed the deepest truth of human healing. Love doesn't need money, status, or perfect plans to work. It only needs someone willing to sit in the grass, to draw lopsided cats in the dirt, to stay present without demanding anything in return. Elena didn't win a competition. She simply saw Lily, not as a problem to fix, but as a child who had learned too young that silence was safer than speaking. And in that gentle, patient presence, a broken heart found the courage to speak again. A grieving father learned to hope again, and a lonely woman discovered she was enough exactly as she was. This story reminds us that the most powerful medicine isn't found in bank accounts or grand gestures. It's in the small, quiet choice to show up, to listen, to say, I see you when the world has taught someone they're invisible. Sometimes the greatest rescue isn't dramatic, it's just staying. Sometimes forever begins with one hand reaching for another in the dark. What part of Elena and Lily's journey moved you the most? Have you ever been the person who stayed for someone when no one else did, or been the one who needed someone to stay? Share your heart in the comments below. I read every single one and they always touch me deeply. And if stories like this, of second chances, quiet kindness, and love that heals, light something inside you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's keep finding and sharing these reminders that even in the hardest silence, hope still finds a way to speak.